Hi everybody. Good evening, good evening. Hope you're all well. I'm struggling at the moment because my stupid tablet hasn't charged up. So I'm going to be a little bit stuck at watching the chat. So if you guys can keep an eye on it for me. I've sent Mick over the link and what have you. So he will be coming in. I said if you could leave it for, till about 10 past, something like that, gives everybody a chance to come in and we can have a bit of a chat. And I can tell you what to expect from the night. So lovely to see you, Night Owl and Wiki. I know that Blue Rose has she sent me a text, so she's off out for a meal. Lucky devil, but we'll see her tomorrow. Hi, Barbara. Lovely to see you. Welcome in. Hope you're all looking forward to this because I am. I know we'll have a few stragglers coming in later, and I hadn't explained to Mick that normally we'll get quite a few of our viewers tomorrow because we've got people in Australia, people in America, and because of the time differences. So hi Janet, lovely to see you. Hi Sheila, welcome in Chicklet. Great to see you all. Has anyone seen Sid around? I don't know whether he kind of came in and left Cooper a message for his birthday. I know Green Eyes said she was going to set her alarm because she desperately doesn't want to miss it. Hi, Frida. Come on in, grab a seat. But I know that Sid will be gutted if he misses this. And Cassius, I think he's coming in as well and what have you. So, yeah, it's... I don't know if any of you have been looking at the news. We've got this, the other night I was talking about the heat bomb. Well, a severe weather warning has been declared for the UK, and it has been, well, we're apparently expecting 30 degrees plus. It's probably not been far off that here today. It has been baking. So hopefully everybody's staying safe, and don't forget, put little bowls of water out in the garden for the little creatures and the birds, because apparently there's a lot of birds are dropping dead of dehydration, and bees as well. They like to have a little drink of something. So you've got hedgehogs and foxes and whatever else that don't have access to fresh water, especially like urban foxes and things. So yeah, please, if you can, if you're an animal lover like me, remember to put a saucer of water or two out around your garden. And if you're putting them down for the birds, don't forget, put a saucer or a bowl out in the open. They don't like coming down for water if there's a lot of foliage around, in case of predators like cats and so on. So they'll be a bit less likely to take a drink if it's right near a bush or what have you. Oh, you're expecting thunderstorms, are you, Frida? Gosh. What? It's cold, Sheila, really? That's ridiculous. Honest to God, it's so hot here at the moment. I mean, I know I'm on the coast, but I would expect the coast to be a little cooler, but it's not. It's absolutely dreadful. Dreadful. God, you as well, Barbara. You see, obviously I'm in the northwest, but it's frigging roasting here. It's been so humid at night. I've been sleeping with the fan on. I apologise for the squeaky noise in the background as well. That's Cooper. So if I tell you guys what the order is tonight, we're going to get, Mick is probably going to be coming up in about 5-10 minutes time. I've got some questions I'm going to be asking him. So, and then I've suggested that we do a Q&A at the end for everybody. So if you've got questions, can you keep them towards the end? If I do see any coming up, I'll try and write them down, but I'm going to struggle to keep an eye on the chat as well, because I've got things written down here that I want to ask Mick. I know, 12 degrees, what the F? Northeast coast. Oh yeah, well you see, that's it, because Sheila's over in the like northeast-ish, are you, east, and then Simples is in the northeast, so she's been saying it's been quite cold up in Northumbria. So, as the title will have probably given you all an idea, we've got our guest tonight is a gentleman named Mick. I'm going to save his surname and his channel name and everything till he comes up. But I hope it's going to be a rare treat for you. He's a really interesting guy. The work he does and the investigations he carries out, I find them fascinating and thrilling. So yeah, I'm hoping you guys are going to get a lot out of this tonight. I know you were all excited for it. And this is also for the people who aren't here who are going to be listening to this on playback, like Blue Rose, probably Green Eyes if she's not woken up. Wake up, it's, I don't know what time is it in Australia there, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, is it? And then we'll have Sid, Brian, I think he's working, Cassius, wherever he is. He never comes in early anyway. He always comes in late and plays it on treble speed. So let's just have a little look. Yeah, we had a bit of a breeze here today, Wickham, but it wasn't, it's not been cool, not by any stretch. I had to leave a message actually before at the farm because somebody keeps bringing Maisie and she stands at the gate in the field and they feel guilty for her. They feel really bad for her. So they keep bringing her in. And I had to put a message. We have a group chat for the farm, so all the horse owners and what have you. And I'd got somebody to bring her in for me today because I had a meeting this afternoon. And Shah texted and said she was already in. So I went onto the group and I said, right, I understand somebody's brought Maisie in early. Newsflash. And I said, she only wants to come in because she knows there's a bucket feed waiting for her. I put her out at 10 o'clock this morning and by 15:15 she was standing at the damn gate. So I said, please leave her out unless she's running up and down the fence line screaming. That's when she really desperately needs to come in. I said, but otherwise leave her out. She'll stand there giving you the doe eyes because she's a fat liar and a sympathy attention seeker. So they were all laughing about that one. It was quite funny, but she's a little bugger. So God knows who brought her in or what time. Oh, Green Eyes, hello, you're just in time. Mick's going to be coming in probably in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to keep an eye on the backstage. I'm glad you're up. I've just been saying I didn't know if you were awake or not. We're going to go through, I've got some questions that I'm going to talk to Mick about. She's a little bugger, Janet, never mind a clever little thing. And then if we can save some questions to the end. So if you've got any pressing questions, things you want to ask Mick, and we'll do a little bit of a Q&A at the end of this. But I'm hoping we get to hear of, you know, a couple of his investigations and so on. We get 20 degrees and we're melting. Well, that's the way it is, isn't it, Frida? We're not meant to be able to cope with high temperatures. I'm definitely not. It's very strange because my colouring, I tan easily, but I can't cope with the heat. Can't cope at all. I used to do, but not now. Not now. So, any goss before we all get going? What do I need to know? Out or now? We've also got we got a new sub last night. He's a guy from the the pagan community that I'm a member of with Rav, our friend from Germany. So we have a new mod who'll be coming in. He's called Luke and Mum, and in America. Really nice channel. I promoted it on my community page and just said, go over there, give him a follow. Nice guy. So hopefully he'll come in today for this one. He was thinking it was, sounding very interesting. So yeah. And if you guys could, like I said yesterday, if you guys can just keep an eye on the chat. If you've got any of those trolls from like Chuffer's side or what have you, please just bin them out. Paula! Hello, my darling. I'm so glad to see you. Wow. 90 degrees in the Florida Panhandle. God. Thing is, it's not going to be that, much far off that here in what's normally the chilly northwest of England. I'm really glad you've made this one, Paula, because we're going to be talking about the paranormal and cryptid creatures and things. You know, we all like our dog men, because you've got the stories in the Florida Panhandle, aren't there, about the skunk ape, which is a form of Bigfoot, isn't it? So, and I've also heard some story. Is it lizard man as well, isn't it, in the Florida Panhandle, which they actually think is possibly a dog man. Yeah, Frida, do you know what? When I went to Turkey, it was the same. We went in June because it was supposed to be a little cooler, and we'd been there for 3 days, and it was quite chilly at night, you know, enough to put like a long sleeve shirt on. 2 days there, and then bang, the temperatures rocketed 40 odd degrees, 41 I think, at one point. And my parting burned, you know, where me centre parting for my hair. I was brushing my head and thinking, oh my God, my scalp's really sore, and I'd actually burned it walking around. So I got a hat after that. Hi, Danny. Hello. Great to see you. Oh, I know you're at work, but thank you so much for coming in. Danny's did a really good upload. Was it yesterday about the oh God, was it Boston bombing? Have I got my... Oh, flipping out my brain, it's terrible. Anyway, look at Danny's latest one, but she's got a guest up, and it was her first she popped a YouTube cherry, shall we say. So yeah, please go, and if you're not subbed to Danny, please give her a sub, because she's got a great channel talking about true crime. You burn your scalp easily. Yeah, well, I'd never done it before, Green Eyes. I mean, I didn't even do it when I was in Australia, but it happened when I was in Turkey. That knackered me up. Oh, just for the aircon. I know, Frida, I know. The hotel we were staying in had only just been built, and the aircon hadn't been plumbed in. Bloody thing. Oh, yes, Janet. Danny's got a really good channel. Danny or anybody, do you want to put Danny's link into the chat, please? Oh, we have a guest backstage. Just give me a second. Our guest for the evening is here. Hi, Mick. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Can everybody hear in chat? Just give me a thumbs up if you can, just to make sure the volume's okay and you can hear Mick all right. We're just talking about the disgraceful heat, and we've got a couple of people. Somebody's here from Australia. We've got some Americans in the chat. One lady's in the Florida Panhandle. So yeah, they're all eagerly waiting to hear what you've got to me, Mick. So that'll be really good.
That's brilliant. Yeah, a Wicca moon. Sorry, a Wicca moon. Hiya. I can see the chat.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, thanks.
Well.
Hi, Lisa. Yeah, we've got most internet. Oh, Luke and Mum as well. Hi, love. He's a new sub from America as well, Mick. So came in last night for the first time and was looking forward to hearing you talk. So yeah, this is going to be really good.
Well, I hope they can understand the accent, because a lot of people with a Boltonian accent, a lot of people don't understand what I'm saying sometimes.
No, I'm sure that we'll be okay. Right, guys and gals. So I am going to I'll start off in 1 second. I'll just let Mick know during the course of our chat, while you're talking, I will put links up for your channel, and then, you know, people can go over and give you a sub. So hopefully you'll get a few more subs by the end of this chat.
Oh,
so
yeah, it helps.
Right, every little helps. So everybody, please meet Mick McLaren. And I met Mick, was it I can't remember, was it 2019 or 20?
It would have been about 2019, yeah.
Was it? I couldn't remember.
Yes. Are we later on going to discuss how we met and why we met?
We could, if you like. These lot don't know. One person on this channel knows, because she found your site purely by chance and said, I heard your dulcet tones on. I was like, oh God, okay, I'm gonna have to, yeah. So maybe we will. We'll see how much time we've got, because I know that they want to hear about some of your investigations and so on. Yeah. So Right, so if I hand over, so everybody, this is Mick McLaren, and could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please, Mick?
Yeah, like you said, I'm Mick McLaren, and I live in a town in the UK called Bolton, which is in the north west of the UK. And I investigate an area called Winter Hill. And that, where you stand on Winter Hill and you look at all over the west, you can see all the coast. You can see places like Blackpool Tower. You know, you're that high up, you can actually look down at all these places, and we're sort of it's sort of like a moorland with woods and reservoirs. It's a lovely place. But before I got into investigating that area, it stems quite way back. I started in about 2012 a mysterious Earth conference, and there was a speaker on talking about ley lines, and I got into that, and it piqued me interest. And I started looking into the alignments of sacred sites and all the ley lines and where they were like crossing, and I started coming across these places where they crossed. It had a lot of folklore behind it, like folk stories about white ladies and different entities that are around these places, like black shadows and I know with your audience, a lot of you know about Dogman, and you tend to find a lot of Dogman sightings on these ley lines. Now, this is before I came to the term a Dogman, and people were saying they were seeing like upright, like black dogs that were standing up, and at that time, like I said, I've not come across it. And as time went on, I were doing my own maps with lines in. If people used to get in touch with me and ask whether where they lived, whether there was a line going through there. So I started like doing a few more ley line maps for people, and I ended up working on one of my own, which went from a place on the west coast to the east coast, starting on the west coast, starting in a place called Churchtown, which is in a place, a little village in Southport. I know some of the people like listening won't know where Southport is, but say with Blackpool and that, but it's on the northwest of the UK. It's like a little bit that sticks out.
Yeah.
And then you can see an estuary going in. Anyway, I started following this line across. But what started me off actually looking at this line was a place on Angleside Moor. Angleside Moor is near to Winter Hill. There's Winter Hill, and then there's all the moorland around it. They've all got certain names around. In this one, particular one, is called Angleside Moor, which is in between an hill called Great Hill and Winter Hill. And then you've got Angleside Moor, and there's like a little burial mound there.
Mm.
And I found that this burial mound were quite important because it had so many. From what I'm seeing, there's about 20 ley lines coming from this point, going out here, there, and everywhere. But this main one I was working on at the time, I saw that it went from a place called Croston to another cross over on a place called Oakenmore. And then I started seeing that it went further east and further west. Now, as I was searching around Croston, I came across a story, and I came across a couple of people in a pub in that area who were talking about a little creature called Shrewfoot. and this was sort of like I'd say about the 80s. I didn't find out about it until like 2012 onwards. But around between the 80s and 90s, there was this little creature being seen, and it was seen running after an feral deer.
Oh.
And it was actually reported in the local news where somebody had seen it who lived in a house back to back with this field and wooded area that it was often seen in. Now, it came in the newspaper that somebody was riding a bike along the road near to where this wooded area were, and on the opposite direction there was a truck or a bus. I'm unsure of the story now, but there was a truck or a bus, and it was coming towards him. Now, he didn't know, because it was like it was on a corner, so he wouldn't have seen this coming. But he would just going 10 to a dozen down this road, and then he noticed this little figure jumping in the trees, what they call shrew-foot. I take it as a form of like boggart, or like spirit of these woods.
Okay.
And he would like riding along, and he stopped and looked up to watch it. And then the next minute, this buzz or truck just came as fast as it could go around this corner. Now, if he wouldn't have stopped, he would have hit it head on. And many people have said about this little being that they've seen it, and like things what they thought were going to happen to them didn't happen. It was warning them in a way, a friendly boggart, if you could call it that.
It's like a benevolent, like a little creature that's actually looking out for you rather than up to me, right? Okay.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you hear all sorts of stories about fairies and things in the woods being seen at night, lights and that was very prominent around this area. I don't think many people talk about it these days, but then it was like a main thing. There was a lot of things happening. So I got interested in that, and I spoke to a few of the people in the pub who knew about this story, but they weren't sure how far it went back. So with that piqued me interest in that area, and like I said, the line, I thought there was only one line going through these what I was looking at. But when I got to Roundloaf, I found out there was many lines, because Roundloaf seemed to be an important, like I said, a very important mound for some reason. I'm still looking into that all these years on.
Can I tell the chat? Sorry, Mick. For anyone who doesn't know, Roundloaf, which Mick is referring to, that's the burial. Is it a Bronze Age one or a Neolithic? It's the burial mound up on.
I think it's a Bronze Age. Yeah.
Yeah. And it looks like the shape of a loaf of bread, and that's why it's called Roundloaf. Just obviously I know, because that's where I'm from. But yeah, sorry to interrupt them, but I thought
that's fine. It's better that way. Yeah, just do that, because sometimes I just talk and I don't, I forget I'm talking to people who don't know the area as well, because this is the main area I work on. And I know there's plenty of people out there who won't know where I am. But if you go onto Google and type in Roundloaf Chorley, it'll zoom me right into where we're talking about.
Yeah, and I'll put some links for people following this live in my community page, just so that you can see some of these places that Mick's been talking about tonight. Because I know that we've just got another of our American friends has come in, who's on the other coast now. She's over in California. So this will be really nice for you all to be able to actually visualize these places. So going on from all of that, you then set up your group, didn't you, Mick?
Yeah. Well, the reason I did that is we had so many cases coming in from around the area, and it was quite overwhelming at the time. And this was in 2019 to 2021. It was around the middle of 2020 actually, and I was getting other reports coming in to me, and I thought to myself, like I'll just put it out there a little bit, if anyone doesn't mind helping. So I ended up forming the Winter Hill Investigation Team, which everyone calls WIT. And yeah, we did that, and then we were just going out to the area around Winter Hill and like looking into that. But we've ended up where if people get in touch with me from other places, we go out and investigate them as well. So yeah, it became a busy time, and there's 4 of us who get out there, and sometimes I do it on my own. Sometimes I do, my partner's one of the team, and she'll come out with me where we like we do camping out overnight, or we'll go to a certain area and stay around that area, like waiting places where things have happened, and we'll, like just find somewhere comfortable to stay for a few hours, just to be quiet and listen and see if anything happens. Because there's many reports of UFOs around the area as well. You're talking, there's things like big cat sightings, dogman sightings. We've had Bigfoot sightings, phantom dogs, ghosts, like I say, UFOs. There's been all sorts happening around here, even to the point where we got a report of a predator-like being that someone would call him a fairy.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, and that was in an area called Tockles, so which is all part of this area we look around.
And so obviously with WIT, you go out, you camp overnight, or you go off and you do these investigations. And how often do you do that, Mick? Is it just as and when, or do you try to get out once a week or what have you?
Well, I'm out, or me and my partner are out. So for the last 3 weeks, we've more or less been out every other night.
Yeah.
And while the weather's nice as well, it's quite nice doing that. But we do go up in the winter time a lot. But we tend to get out as often as we can, you know. But if there's a new reporting coming in, which has been very quiet at the moment, there's like spurts of sometimes it can be quiet for a bit, but that gives us a chance to get up there and have a good look round. And do our little bits of investigation from other sightings, what have come to me. But we tend to get up there as often as we can and just look around these places and do as much as we can.
So with the investigations, how do you decide? Do you investigate everything, or do you have some kind of criteria to whittle out the cases or the eyewitness accounts that you're going to investigate? Is there any set pattern for that, or how do you do that?
If somebody gets in touch with me, because I've got a few posters up there, and every so often I'll get somebody who rings me who's had something happening to them. In fact, last Friday, I got a phone call. And it was from someone. I know you know yourself, but there's a place called Liverpool Castle, which is on one of the reservoirs up there.
Yes, I do. It's again for other people. It's not a castle as such. It was kind of a folly that is built like a castle, and that's up at. I think that's on Angles. Is it on Angles?
That's on just in Rivington itself.
Yeah,
it's down at bottom. The folly itself, it was built by a fellow called Lord Leverhulme, who based it on a castle that was in Liverpool itself. That's why it's called Liverpool Castle. Yeah, and he built it as a folly, but as he passed on, it wasn't. They didn't carry on with building it, so it became a ruin of a folly. But it's still there. And like I said, this fellow rung me up last Friday, sounding a bit shocked. He said he's seen a little girl, like almost a transparent little girl, walking along the wall there.
Wow.
So when I get things like that, I'm actually waiting for him to ring me up, because we're going to go up there together as well. But when we get reports like that, I try and get out there as quick as I can.
Yeah.
To have a look around the place, you know, and I put the dates down, what the weather's like at the time, you know, all these little bits and bats of, you know, like I said, the weather, who they were with, you know, because he were with 3 other people, and they'd all seen this as well.
And do you kind of look at the moon phases as well? Is that anything you take into account on every? I mean, I know that might be something that you would look at if it was a dogman sighting. You know, is it a full moon, a you know, new moon, what have you? I think Lady Witch had mentioned earlier in the chat, full moon and new moon.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you also note things like that down?
Definitely, yeah, with the moon phases, yeah, just in case.
And
but I must say, it doesn't always, with dogman reports, it sometimes it doesn't have to be a full moon. They just seem to be there all the time.
Yes, yeah. As I mean, we find that with the stories coming out of America, because there is a lady actually, and she's going to hate me now, Mick, but I would really like to be able to pass her email on to you. There's a lady in the chat called Lady Witch, and Lady Witch is in Michigan. And as you know, Michigan is famous for the dogman.
Yeah.
And we saw the dogman actually not just outside of the town. It wasn't in the wild. She was only, I think she was late teens, early 20s. And she gave me the story to regale to the chat. It's in my playlist, but I wouldn't mind, Lady Witch, can I have your permission to send this over to Mick? Because I think you'll really find it fascinating.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant if she doesn't mind.
Yeah, because we've also got another lady who will come in at some point, Julia, who is in Burnley. And she's the lady, if you remember, when I got together with you and Chris, and I was telling you about the lady whose son had the UFO lost time encounter, and they'd actually seen the UFOs running along right near Tockholes, actually, on the M65.
Yeah.
So if she comes into chat as well, I'll see if. Oh yeah, so Lady Witch said I can send that over to you, so I'll email that over to you later on, Mick.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So what are the most, as far as eyewitness encounters go, what are the? Do you get more of one than another? Is there a particular type of eyewitness encounter that you get more of, or is it kind of across the board?
You know, I think it's across the board, actually. At the moment, I'm looking at my map as we're talking, and when I look at it, there's a bit of everything. But it's all mixed and matched. I have a lot of UFO sightings. There's a lot of dogman sightings around the area. Yeah, and even looking at this, I've got. Oh, excuse me. I've got an headless horseman. You know, and it is a mixture of everything.
Where's the horseman sighting, Mick?
That's on a place called George's Lane. Now, that's a lane that actually takes you up the road towards the mast itself.
Oh. Yeah, I mean...
yeah, that's in a field. I mean, you know the place, and you know there's a row of houses and bungalows, and then there's a big field. It was actually in that field.
Oh, gosh. Gosh, because as well, I mean, we've got people in here who've had UFO experiences. Green Eyes, who is originally from Rochdale. She now lives in Queensland, Australia. She's been there for 20 years. She's had an experience in the outback over there. And these are credible witnesses. These are professional people who are in here. It's not somebody who's had a few too many mad dogs and decided to just come on and regale us all with tales of whatever they saw in a drunken stupor. These are professional people who, as you know yourself, and I may or may not tell people what I discussed with you, but people don't want the attention. They don't come out to tell you things for attention. They try and not say anything, or they want to be anonymous, or You know, so I know the people in here. I know they're new to you, but the people in here are all very credible, you know, very honest and professional people. So it's it's quite shocking sometimes when you get to hear these stories, isn't it? And you know,
yeah, and like you said, with people, you know, I have people coming to me and they just don't want to be put out there. And a lot of these stories don't get out there because they've asked whether, you know, like they just want to get it off the chest, talk about this, and they don't want it going any further. So, you know, there's quite a few like that, and it's amazing. I'm surprised at how many people are who do that compared to the ones who actually want to get the stuff out there. You know, there are a lot. To me, with the report, I'm getting a lot more people who don't want it being put out there.
Yeah.
Genuine people with good jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they want you to know what they've seen, and you can keep a record of it. But they're just quite happy to stay quiet and in the background. And
yeah.
You see, Brian's just put in the chat there that he saw a horse and carriage on the road from Corby to Stamford many years ago. You know, you get all of these different sightings that come out. And oh, sorry, Sheila's just asked. I know we said we'll do Q&As at the end, but Sheila wants to know: is your map on your channel? She's put, it's been good to see that. Have you got a map on your channel of sightings?
It's actually on the website.
Ah, right. Okie dokes.
Yeah, I have it on the website, so people can have a look at these things and where they are. And you'll see like you'll see it as a map with what they are. You know, you'll see a little UFO with a title next to it. And that's what I've got up at the moment. These are all the things that I've investigated that people don't mind me putting out there.
And what are your favourites, or rather, what would you say would be your favourite types of encounters to investigate?
Well, I like some really unusual, you know, like Dogman reports and Bigfoot reports. You know, I find it amazing that these creatures are here in this country, whether it be that the teleporting from one dimension to another. You know, it just fascinates me. You know, when I get a report of say a Bigfoot, which I had one which is on the map, people can look at, and it actually takes you to the video where I interview him, because on my YouTube channel, when people come to me, I ask them whether they don't mind being interviewed.
Yeah.
And if they do, that's great, you know, and we get their story out there, and it's usually me chatting with them, sometimes going for a walk in the area if they've had these accounts.
Yeah.
So on the maps, there'll be little links that will take you to the YouTube channel and where you can listen to the witness as well.
And on that, I'm just going to say, I got a lot of people here to follow, you know, the other channels, like, I don't know if you follow Marvin Allen and Jeff Nadolny, and then obviously Vic Cundiff. And I said that I know you had been a guest on Vic Cundiff's channel,
that's right.
Encounters Radio. And I was going to say to people, if you listen to Mick's interviewing style, it's very similar, different, obviously because of the accents and so on, but Mick's interviewing style, it does remind me a bit of Vic's in the way that Mick just lets you talk. Just, you know, and then we'll occasionally throw a question, but he will just let you talk. And I think that's what a lot of people want. As you said, they want to be heard. They want to get the story out. They might not want to be identified, but they just want the chance to talk to somebody who isn't going to laugh at them or ridicule them or, you know, take the mickey, whatever. Sorry if I'm using your name in vain there. Take the mick.
Yeah, so, well, that's right. It's that's what I like doing. You know, like, if there's nothing worse than somebody who wants to get the story out and they're being interrupted every 5 minutes and they lose a train of thought. You know, I like them just telling the story, and I'll wait for a pause and then I'll ask a question. When I know they're finished talking about that certain part, I'll ask them another question about it and just let them tell their story.
And yeah, and it's nice. And I was going to say then, when I realised I said that you sounded, you know, it's a similar technique. Bear in mind, Mick and Vic, it's like a double act, isn't it? They hadn't crossed paths before, so this is the natural style that Mick has got. You know, he's not trying to fashion himself and anybody else, but it was really good to listen to that interview. And again, I'll find the link, and I will post all of these in my community page for everybody. But I'm just going to plug again, shameless plug, Mick's channel link is up there on the screen. So for those of you who haven't subbed, I know quite a few of you did, can you bog off over there, give him a sub, give him some support, because you know the larger his channel, the more people will listen to these stories, and the more they will get out there. Sorry about that, just a shameless plug. So can we ask you, what would you say has been your scariest investigation to date, Mick?
Right. Well, this is on the East Coast when we went over to there as a team, and it was in a place called Benton, which I don't know if you've heard of Benton. There's a lot of things happening over here in Benton. There's a fellow called Paul Sinclair who's written a lot of books. He's written 4 books on the subject of what he's been doing over there. He has a YouTube channel that is called Truth Proof, and I've been over there meeting Paul as well. In fact, I've got an upcoming video with me interviewing Paul coming out next month.
Oh, brilliant.
So you'll hear what he's been doing over there. So we went over to this place called Benton. We stayed over in a caravan for a few nights. And this one night, there was, it ended up just being the 4 of us, me and a fellow called Lee Roscoe, who's part of the team, and another couple who'd come over meeting us. Now, they're not the core members of WIT, but they're part of it. We have others who come out with us sometimes, you know. These are a couple of mediums as well who come along with us sometimes when we're investigating certain areas. So they were out with us, and what had happened is we were walking along the cliff. We'd actually got up to a place called Big Landing, where you can stand there and watch all the birds on the cliffs. A lot of bird watchers go there, and they stand on this area, and they watch all the incoming birds, the puffins and things like that are coming in, and take notes. We were there. I think it was around about 9 o'clock, and it was pitch dark this night. And around that area, if you turn your torches off, you could hardly see in front of you. It's that dark. But we were in that area, and Pete and Nat, who were the mediums, they were picking up things. Now, Nat was feeling a bit anxious, and she was ready for going, but we wanted to go to this other area. There's a little hill not far up from this area, and it's been known for a UFO landing. And along this cliff, there's a lot of fishermen who fish a lot along the cliffs, sort of hanging over, you know. And these are the very, very high cliffs, you know. And when I stood there in front of the fencing and I looked down, I don't know how they can do it. It's terrifying. And we'd got up there and we were ready for going, but I wanted to go over there, but I was ready to go back because she didn't feel right. And at that point, I started feeling a bit uncomfortable myself. Now, not only that, I had the feeling of goosebumps all the way from my ankles to the top of my head, and it was just getting more and more, and I was feeling very anxious. So Lee and wanted to move a little bit further. Now, we had this great big, you know, one of them torches that it's about 6,000 luminum. So when you turn them on, it's like a floodlight. he's well known for turning this floodlight on and just lighting everything up. And he was walking along, and at one point he thought to himself, like, I'll turn my torch on. So he turns his torch on to come face to face with a pair of like green eyes looking at him, and this figure. Now he couldn't make out the figure because it ducked down straight away. Now the eyes, which we all saw as well, because we were like, like after, when he saw that initially, and it ducked down, and he with his torch followed it, and it ran with another one, because when he looked down, there was another one. As it ducked down, he saw another one with it. We can't explain what they were, but he said they were running alongside of this hill, and then they went up, and it looked as though they were almost suckering to the landscape and going up this hill. But they changed as well, because one of them changed what looked like into a deer, and the other one changed what looked like into a big cat. Now, you wouldn't think of something like that running together. So, excuse me, a bit of frog in my throat. He's watching these. Now, this torch, it's one of them where you could only have it on so long. You're going to turn it off because it gets too hot. So he has to turn it off for a minute and then turn it back on. Now, at the time, I had it's what's called an Ahura night vision camera, and it can see in the dark, but it can see color as well.
All right.
Now, this is on the channel as well and zoomed in, because I'd zoomed it in, but I, at the time, couldn't see what was going on, because because it's a night vision, you put it up to your eye, you move it away, and it sort of blinds you a second.
Yeah.
So I was holding this up, hoping I'm catching something, but I'm moving about as well because I'm trying to get to him. Now, we do eventually catch it, and it does look, when it's zoomed in, you'll see something running in front, and then you'll see something running behind. And you actually, if you look closely enough, you see a tail end like a big cat, which is quite really, really strange. Now, these run up this hill and they disappear. And then the next minute, there's like green eyes watching us. At this point, we decided, like not to carry on, but head back to cars, because not only it wasn't the sight of these things and everything, it was more of how we were feeling.
Yeah.
It was an unusual feeling. It was like, like anxiety, adrenaline, all these, like feeling the goosebumps all over our bodies, and excitement as well, and being scared at the same time. But we felt as though there was something deeper than that as well. There was it's one, I really can't explain how I felt that night or how any of us felt. But these things ran up there and disappeared. Now, as we were looking over with I had my infrared camera, and Lee's got a thermal. So he's trying to see whether he can see a thermal image. Now, we could see the green eyes. And when I say green, it was like looking at a traffic light in dark. That's how green they were. But they started following us as we were going back.
Oh, God.
And then one pair disappeared. And there was just the one pair following us. And my thought at that point was, why we only see one behind us following us? And I thought to myself, that means there's another one. Where is it? What's it doing? So that was making us more anxious, and we were heading back. And we did eventually get back to the car park. Now, we felt a little bit safer there for some unknown reason. But Pete, who's our medium, actually said he felt like there was a demonic entity that was from this area, and this is what it was. It was putting this fear into us. and it was sort of feeding. He felt as though it was feeding on the fear.
And does he think those things that you saw were demonic, or the demonic thing was something else?
Well, there's that much stuff going on in this area. We were unsure because he said it was a different feeling when we saw these two things to a different feeling to when we got back to the caravan. To the car park.
Right.
We was in the car park for a bit. We were filming while we were doing it. We left our cameras on all the time. Now, usually when you go to a place and you've got your cameras on, you never, nothing ever happens. It always seems to happen when you turn your devices off.
Yeah.
But when we got to near the car park, we were looking in this one field because we could see these eyes in this field. So we were like pointing our cameras there. Now, it weren't until we got back and we looked at the footage and looked at the footage, and this is in the videos as well, which are on our YouTube. There's a figure, and I've done it to a point where you can see it in different light spectrums, but this figure walks from the left to the right along this field, and it looks like the old Patty, the Gimli Bigfoot. It looks like that, but in a shadow, walking from right to left. And I was lucky to get that because I weren't actually looking at any. I didn't see anything, but the camera itself picked it up. I've zoomed in so people can see it, and changed the colors and slowed it down so people could see it actually walking. At first, we weren't so sure whether it was where the light was with the torches, whether it was on a bit of grass. But looking at it, it does look like a proper bipedal figure walking across. We got to the car park. We felt a little bit better, but every so often we were getting a feeling that it was coming back. We were getting this feeling in our bodies again, in our emotions again. And they kept coming and going, and without noticing until we got back, the lights were coming on and off. But for some reason, while we were there, we weren't noticing that. But when we got back, we noticed it on the video. Now, at one point, me and Lee saw something moving at the back of this little shed.
Right.
And then we see eye shine on the footage when we get back. But all we saw while we were there was a shadow moving. So, and that night, we ended up going back to the caravan, and we stayed up till maybe 4 o'clock in the morning because we were that, the adrenaline was going, and we were just talking about it, and there was other people there who we were talking to about it, and yeah, that was quite a frightening night.
God, it sounds like it, and I think as well when you're out in the open, you've not got you're safe. You're kind of safe in your vehicle, aren't you? You feel a little safer, but you haven't got the comfort of being back in your own home with the doors and the windows locked and the lights all turned on. There's still a possibility something could suddenly appear, isn't there? And
true. But when we was back at the caravan, we was all sat there, and even people who were with us, who weren't there and experienced that, at one point, we all felt as though there was someone outside circling the caravan, and we all felt them goosebumps and that feeling again, as though it had come to see what we were doing. Now, where we were staying at the caravan, it weren't that far from the area we'd just been. So all we were thinking was this thing, whatever it is, has followed us back.
Because they say that about dogmen, don't they? Someone can have I mean, not saying that was what that was, but it's a similar thing, isn't it? You could have an encounter at 50 miles away, and you leave the site, you go home in terror, and then I'm specifically talking about encounters in America, and then they'll have the damn thing will turn up on the porch or something. Whether they've kind of linked to you psychically so that they can track you, because there's no way they can follow a scent, is there, because you're in a vehicle.
That's
so
true.
is there some form of a psychic link that they make with you once you've seen them?
Well, you never know, because that's what it felt. You know, it was putting this feeling on us. But is that what it was doing at the time? Was it getting a bit of our essence sort of thing to know, you know, if it came anywhere, you know, like after coming about 5 or 10 miles around us, that it'd pick that essence up again.
Wow. That's quite disconcerting, actually, for me anyway. I mean, I know you've got I always say people have got balls of steel who go out, because I've seen some of your videos and you're in the pitch black and I'm thinking, oh my God, you crazy people. Because I would be too scared. I would have to go in a big group. I think we were on about that, weren't we? And I said I would have to go with a gang of people and I'm in the middle, so that nothing can get at me because I'm too frightened.
Yeah.
But as I was going to say, so as you know, there's a big topic for us that we like to discuss on this channel is dogmen. Virtually everybody on here, we've had some people who've had an encounter of their own. We've got people who are absolutely fascinated, scared, but fascinated by it. And we've all got different theories, and we very often will discuss what we think dogmen are, where we think dogmen have come from. We've got a couple of our members as well are Native Americans. So, you know, they again have their own theory on dogmen, you know, with the shapeshifters, skinwalkers and so on.
Yeah.
Do you have anything? I'll tell you our theory after I've heard yours, but do you have any theories on what they are and where they're from?
You always tend to find when these sightings are seen, when the dogmen are seen, or even phantom dogs, because there's a few phantom dogs sightings that they have. And I always tend to find that there's some sort of burial mound around them. Now, are these like thought forms that have been left there to look after the sacred site? Because sometimes you do find them around cemeteries.
Yes.
Or is it something special around there that they're coming in from another place, another dimension? And then you know you get the idea of super soldiers. Now I don't go for that, but I do know, you know, like through listening and reading a few things, what people think about that. I think it is quite I tend to put this down to almost a supernatural thing.
Okay.
It is coming from another place.
Yeah. I think when you just mentioned the graveyards and burial grounds and so on, I heard a theory. It was quite interesting, actually. I heard somebody was theorizing that they were the guardians of the dead. You know, like you had Cerberus, the three-headed dog in the world, that they were a form of guardian of the dead, and they would come through a portal, time slip, whatever you want to call it, around a graveyard or a burial ground. Again, like you said, we've had the possibility that they're an alien species. We've had the possibility that they're a hybrid military, you know, fighting being, as you've just mentioned. But the one I've heard, have you heard Jeff Nadolny's recent theory on this, Mick?
I've not actually, no.
Right, I was fascinated because he talks about Bigfoot and dogmen, and you know that there have been a few theories around Bigfoot thrown around that it's possibly Gigantopithecus.
Right.
The ancient ape. So, and then somebody threw around that they think this could be another evolutionary line. So it was originally a Gigantopithecus that crossed the land bridge before the USA separated from Russia. It was, and then it's kind of evolved in its own way. So it is evolving towards kind of a primitive human. It's human nonetheless, but it's very primitive. So he was talking about that. And then he said, you know, do you think that they could have come through a time, you know, a rip in time or from another portal where in that reality, they're still 20 or 30,000 years ago when Gigantopithecus was around. And I was thinking, yeah, you know, that's kind of feasible. Then he mentioned this creature called Dinopithecus. I don't know if you've heard of it. If not, if you look on my community page, Mick, I put a photograph up of it, like a drawing up of it. And Dinopithecus is an ancient kind of type of baboon that was around about the same size at same time. But when it's standing on all fours, it's nearly the same height as a 6-foot man.
Right.
And when you look at the shape of it, it's got that extended muzzle. It's got the absolute ripped torso, the incredibly long arms with the fingers rather than paws, and the dog-like back, the long back foot with the bent back legs. And he said, is it not feasible that if Gigantopithecus might be coming through a time rip, that Dinopithecus could be coming as well? He said, because if you think about what that looks like and the size of it, it's very, very similar to the descriptions of dogmen. So that's the latest theory that I've heard. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually feeling this one. It was very interesting. Yeah, it was very interesting. I've just highlighted something then, Mick. Joe Mardre, who's our friend in California. So she's also had a dogman or whatever encounter. And she just put that it was either a demon dog or a dogman. She doesn't know, but it had amber red eyes and it felt demonic. She was talking on the back of your story about this demonic feeling.
Yeah.
It whooshed in a whirl of hot wind towards the river, and she still keeps one eye on that part of her yard. She's never got over that sighting. So, as I said, there are quite a few people in here with their own experiences.
Yeah. Well, saying that sounds like I don't know if you know about the jinn and demons and that sort of thing. The jinn are like almost like smoke. Have seen as smoke, and these beings have been here longer than humans. And it's a Muslim tradition that call them jinn, but they were here way before that. We don't know what they're called before that, but we just call them the jinn, and they're like the demons, and they live in a dimension not that very close to ours, and they can come through, and not only that, they live in places in the middle of nowhere where nobody goes, and they don't like human presence, and sometimes they show themselves as dogs. The lower form of the jinn will show themselves as a dog with red eyes.
Right.
When you said that, then that was the first thing I thought about.
Yeah, I've never heard of.
See, somebody else has put a jinn here.
Yeah. Oh, and Green Eyes is saying she's seen smoke people. Green Eyes is the lady who's from Rochdale but is now living in Australia.
Yeah.
And Luke and Mum has said that could even be the reason for seeing the Loch Ness Monster, a time warp just for one instant.
Yeah. Because I mean, like with time, it could be with time. They could be slipping just into our time and then just slipping back out. But that's the time when we see them.
Yeah, it's oh, hang on, what's Lady Witch put? Like Enenras. What's that, Lady Witch? I don't know unless you know, Mick. Enenras.
No, I don't know that.
Oh, I don't know. She's very, very knowledgeable, is our Lady Witch, so I'll let her explain that one. So if you have you got any specific stories that you'd or encounters that you'd like to tell us about? Anything that springs to mind that you think we'd find very interesting?
Well, let's go to the Bigfoot one. What I were talking about earlier on, which is brilliant. This is in a place just outside of Blackburn, in a place called Whitton Country Park. This area, it's lovely to visit. You've got Blackburn, the town, and then on the outskirts you've got this Whitton Country Park, which goes all the way into the moors, and it stretches quite a while. And this fellow is called Oliver, and he's a wild camper, and he'd been out one weekend, and he'd come back home, and he loves these animals, and he's got quite a few animals and that, and he had chickens, and he had this chicken which had passed on when he got back, and he thought, where he goes wild camping, he'll take it up there, he'll just bury it there in that area, you know, like and away from like where he lives. He was going through there one night, and this place, like I said, it's moorland, but there's an hill called Billings Hill.
Yes.
And it's just one big wooded area, this hill. And he was walking through this area, and he said he's walking along, and he looks to his left, and he sees like this orange coloured hair. And he sort of like, he said he looked again, you know, like thinking, you know, like, what's that? He saw it out of the corner of his eye. He looked, he saw this cone-shaped head with orange hair. And he's looking over, and this thing slowly rises up, turns its head, and looks at him. And he's ginger himself, and he always points to his beard and says it was as orange as this.
Wow.
And the shape of its head, he said he couldn't get over it because it was like a cone shape. You know, I think of Harry and the Edisons when he's talking about this story, because it does puts that, you know, like Bigfoot, how that looks into my mind. And he looks over like, and he sees this. He says he sees it doing like a funny movement, almost like a ballerina moving round and hiding behind a tree. And then he sees his sausage fingers holding the tree and this head poking round, looking at him. He said at that point, he almost just collapsed with fear, and he just ran for it. And he got to the field, and he got his breath, and he's ringing his then girlfriend, he's ringing her up. And she's saying, go back and have another look, take photos. And he's like, no. And he ends up going home. But he does go back the day after. And he has a look round the area. And he said, where this thing was, and he looked down, there was all mushrooms that had been half-eaten. But he's big into his werewolf. He's a Bigfoot now, and he does a lot. It took him 2 years to get back out there while camping again. You know, it's only this year that he's really got himself hyped up to the point where he's going back out. So yeah, he saw this like Bigfoot creature. When he took me there, like I said, he's the one who we do the interview with. When he took us there and he showed me where it was, it must have been about 8 foot tall, this thing. The way it was, where he said it was standing and where its fingers were. It's such an unusual one, but you know, there's quite a few of these Bigfoot sightings around this area.
Gosh, that's I mean, it's something that I would never have considered. Then again, I would have never considered dogmen in the UK either, you know.
No. Yeah, when I first got into looking at these things, my first thought was, you know, like these people who would say this, you know, like what's going through their minds? What are they really seeing? But you know, like these are genuine people. You know, these are people who, like we yourself, we you know, like, we talk about what's gone on with witnesses, and I'll talk and talk. You know, like I'll get in touch with them and I'll go and meet them, and the stories what they tell me. I mean, Oliver, he's told me this story I don't know how many times, but nothing ever changes. No. It's always the same story. No matter what he's talking about, he'll tell it. The thing is, when they're telling, the witnesses are telling their accounts, you can see them playing it in their minds. You know, you can see them looking a certain way where they're thinking about what they saw.
Yeah.
You know, so you know these are genuine people.
Yeah, because you try and rationalise it, don't you? It's they know what they've seen, but
Yeah.
they then try and think, but did I? No, let me think something that's going to kind of explain what I've seen, because it's the reality is more frightening. To actually have to admit what you saw is more frightening than, yeah, you know, it's, I mean, I can only, because I'm a wimp, but yeah, it's, you like you say, you can see, and I've watched the videos of people of eyewitnesses, and you can see them. They hesitate just for that second. It's not because they're making it up; it's because they're actually having to admit what they've seen and all the horrors that come with it.
I think they're sort of putting themselves back there again while they're talking about it, because you can see it going through the mind.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a very, very scary thing to have to deal with. And now, can I just ask you about your Winter Hill investigation team? Do you ever have, like, I don't know, open meetings or anything? Can people come along and help out, or is it like a closed group? Or
No, in fact, if anyone wants to get in touch and come along and come out with us sometime, they're more than welcome to.
oh, that'd be brilliant. That would be brilliant.
Because I do that, you know, like I have had meetings where people have come along. I had one in Rivington itself. We had a meet there a couple of years back now, and I walked around the areas where the witnesses have seen things, and not only that, on this walk, the witnesses have come out as well, because I've become quite good friends with some of the witnesses.
Yeah,
and if I'm doing something like that, they're happy enough to come along as well. You know, because they want answers.
If right, well, there you go. If anybody, we'll get some contact details as well, which I'll put on my channel. So if anybody fancies that, you never know, I might come with you. Maybe we should have a channel tag along on one of Mick's investigations or meetups or something. You know what I'm going to say now, don't you? I'm wondering whether to tell them all how we met.
I think you should. It's good that they know what you've been through as well, because they're here to listen to this, so they'll be, you know, it'll be good for you to actually say why.
Right, maybe that. Well, like I said, I know Janet, who's in chat, she's heard it. I'll not go into every bit of detail because it's on Mick's channel, and you can go over. I'd rather he has the view. Go over and listen to it on Mick's, because we did an interview actually out. Twice we went out, didn't we? And
yeah, because the first time was for my channel, and the second time actually is for a film we're actually making about the area, about all these things that are going on. I'm working with a fellow called Chris Turner, who's done a few documentaries on this sort of thing. He's one of his is called Elusive, which is on about the British Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So we're actually working on a documentary at the moment, and yeah, you're going to be in it.
Yes. Hidden, obviously, but yeah, it's right. So yeah, I met Mick back probably about 4 years ago. God, how's time flown, eh? That's
just one answer. Yeah, it does.
I was thinking it was last year, and I thought, no, it was last year I came out when you were filming.
Yeah.
I told these guys, oh, I'm going along. I'm going to be filmed for this film that's coming out, but I didn't tell them any details. I didn't even tell them what kind of topic it was on.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, I'm coming clean. So it was for Mick, and basically, very briefly, without too many details, back in 2012, and it was the night of the Queen's Jubilee. Over here in the UK, and we lit all the beacons. So if any of you have seen Lord of the Rings, you know, when the Gondor, they light the beacon, and then you see each hill is lighting another beacon and another beacon until it gets all the way to the Kingdom of Rohan. You can tell I'm a fantasist. That was what was happening here that night. And it was, as I said, it was in the in 2012, and they were lighting the beacons, which was the old way of communicating in England back in, that from the Middle Ages right up to probably about the 1800s, before telephones and telegrams and everything else. So I went up there to watch the beacons being lit with a couple of friends and our dogs, and it was a weird evening right from the start. We went up before it went dark. It was a really hot day. We'd taken some sandwiches for those abroad, crisp, a few, pop and what have you. I'd driven my car up to the top of this lane, parked it up, and then we'd walked through there's like a kissing gate and over the moors. And as we got up there, it's probably it's about a mile, Mick, is it? Mile and a half? Something from
about a mile and a half, I'd say.
About a mile and a half across the moors up to Great Hill. When we kind of got to Great Hill, which is the high point on the moors there were sheep. Now, my old dog Murphy, and some of you have seen photographs of him, he was a working dog because we used to live on a farm. So this crowd of sheep were not for moving. Now, my friend's little dog was a bit of a cheap chaser, and we didn't want it getting in any bother. So I used Murphy to send the sheep away, and he chased this flock. There's probably about 20 sheep, chased him away, and then I called him back to heel, and the sheep came back. Chased him away again, and the sheep came back. And this was really unusual. And 3 times we did it. And the sheep just kept coming back to, and anybody who's worked farms or seen livestock, that's unusual. That should have been a warning sign for me. And, I wasn't expecting anything weird. But we had the evening up there. We watched the beacons being lit. There was another gang of people turned up. One girl we worked with and a load of her friends. They were all getting pissed up. And it was a bit of a party. We had a ragey one. We're having a sing-song and a dance. And on the return journey in the pitch black, so it's probably, I'm thinking it was about midnight-ish. We weren't really watching the clock. We had how do I describe it? Something frightened the dogs. My dog in particular, who started to growl and look in a certain direction. And we'd heard this growl in the distance, which I thought might have been a dog. Over on the moors, and it was a full moon that night, but the area we were in at that time was pitch black. And long story short, it was putting the frickies up me, it was putting the frickies up my mate. The guy that was walking down the moors with us had a head torch on. We didn't even have torches on. We had flip-flops, for Christ's sake. We're in shorts and flip-flops and T-shirts. We hadn't gone prepared at all. He had a head torch on us, and as I turned round to talk to them, the light that was coming from his head torch lit up this thing that it basically went from the left side of the path to the right side, just in front of us. I'm just on the edge of this arc of light. And I thought at first it was a cow. And then realised, with common sense, no, there's no cows up here. The only livestock that is up here is sheep. And we were basically then followed from the top of the moors all the way back. I did see it again. Again, I don't want to ruin it because I'd like you to listen to the story on Mick's and give him the view. But this thing was kind of following us, and it was moving from the left side of the path to the right side. We didn't see it again all the way down, but the dogs were really upset. I was terrified. When I saw it for the second time, which was not far from where the car was parked, I took off running, and I was running that hard down this path, which was full of rocks and stones and all sorts, that I shredded my feet. I had flip-flops on, my toes were, they were bleeding, my toenails were knackered. I was absolutely terrified. And it took me like 9 years, 8 or 9 years to actually tell anybody about it. My 2 friends saw it as well the second time. I only saw it, there was only me saw it the first time. But yeah, and then I was put in touch with Mick, or rather you got in touch with me, didn't you, Mick? Was it Deborah Hart? Is it Hartswell? Yeah. Hartswell, yeah. Deborah had got Mick to get in touch with me, and I told him the tale, and then went up with Mick and his partner Caroline. Is it Caroline or Caroline?
Caroline.
Carol Ann. I knew I'd get it right eventually. And we went up in broad daylight because I was too scared to get out the car. I never walked up there on my own after this. It was terrifying. So yeah, it's this whole story is on Mick's channel. We recorded an interview that day, and then when Mick got home, he'd filmed and everything. We've got Cooper on there, who you all know and love. But when he got home, he realised that the wind noise had affected the recording, so we had to then do it again over the phone, didn't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, so very in a nutshell, that was what happened to me in 2012. And it's given me the horrors ever since. I didn't know what it was I'd seen. I thought I'm getting a little bit too American Werewolf in London here, and that because that's exactly what I thought at the time. And I thought, is that just my imagination? I've got no idea what the hell I saw. I was so frightened. And just one night, purely by chance, I came across Deb Hatswell's channel, and she was talking about an eyewitness who had seen basically what I had seen. And I thought, oh my God, I got in touch with her, and then she put me, or rather passed my details over to Mick, and he got in touch with me because I didn't know what I'd seen, and I couldn't believe that someone else had seen it as well. And this is what we think is the Beast of Winter Hill.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it is real. It's not. And you guys know how long have I known all you, and I've never told any of you because you feel stupid. You do feel stupid. So I hope none of you take the mickey. But yeah, that's what happened to me.
Well, not only that, since meeting you up to now, I've had many other reports of this Beast of Winter Hill.
Yeah.
So it's not just you; it's a lot more.
Yeah, and none of us know each other. You know, none of us listen to these. You know, each other's stories. Everybody's coming to Mick with their own tale, and he's going, "My God, that's like this story. That's like that story. That's like I've had a story like this in the same area." And it's you see, one of the other things as well is that we thought there were possibly two that night, didn't they? Where I was, because something was definitely stalking us down the moors, but we'd heard the growl that was further over. Which was down in the Valley of White Coppice. And again, I'll show you guys everything. Mick's got video of this so you can see exactly where it was. He walks it. You did it at night, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get the atmosphere that you had that night, and we actually went up when it was a full moon.
Yeah.
But with my camera equipment, it looks a lot lighter than how dark it would have been when you were up there.
Yeah, because it's pitch black.
Yeah.
It's pitch black up there. There's no street lights. There's no light pollution at all. You're high up, and it's and like Mick has said, you know, you've got ancient burial grounds up there. God knows what's in the peat. You know, there could be bog bodies or all sorts. We don't know because it's peat moors all the way up there. It's just got the whole place has a weird feeling. Hasn't it? Even the woods the plantations that are slightly below, they have a weird feeling as well. It's a very, very strange area. And it's worth a visit. Saying
that, Brinskull Woods,
yes,
which is just near this path. There's been a lot of people going up there lately who have the channels who look into dogmen, and who are now calling it Dogman Woods.
Really?
Yeah. I was in the meeting, someone who had a channel a few months back, who just wanted to give me a quick interview while I was up there.
Right.
They were camping out. I was going to stay the night, but it was one of them where I had people coming round. You know, like I had other friends, and family friends coming round, so I couldn't camp out all night. And some of them came along with me, and I just had a quick interview and went from there.
So it's called Dogman Woods. Well, for those of you on this channel, many of you have seen me when I've been filming Cooper and me in the woods and the photographs. That's Brinskull Woods. That's near where I used to live. Because I sent you a recording, didn't I, Mick? Of
you did, yeah.
video of Cooper freaking out that I'm thinking, is this a... I thought it might have been a deer. I was hoping it was a deer, but the way the dog reacted, normally if it's a deer, he'll go peeling after it. So I don't know what you ever made of that.
Well, yeah, I did listen to it. It does sound like a deer. But saying that, there's been other people who've heard the same thing.
Oh, have they?
You know, when they've been up there camping as well. So I'm unsure.
Yeah, and I think it was what did me with that was the way that my dog was reacting.
Yeah.
You know, because I've got that on the video, the way, and he's growling and he's looking into the bushes and he's barking and he's growling, and that's not what he does. If he sees a deer, he chases the damn things. He chases them off. He's not frightened of deer. That really... And the other thing as well, I was going to say, somebody said to me that, no, we've heard this with Bigfoot, but I also heard a theory online about dogmen mimicking. You know, you hear sometimes that Bigfoot might mimic little children, that dogs may mimic things like deer, whether it's to hunt or whether it's to confuse people, I don't know. But I thought, could that have been what was happening? Because I don't think it was a deer. I really don't.
When you think about that with Bigfoot making certain noises of animals and that, it's just like hunters going out with, you know, like hunting duck, and they have them little like whistles that make duck noises.
They do.
You know, to attract the ducks, and then they shoot them. You know, are the Bigfoot doing that, making the same noise to attract deer, so they can swoop around and grab them?
Yeah, and you know, everybody's saying that these dogmen are highly intelligent, whatever they may be. So is it outside the realms of possibility that they could be doing the same thing?
Well, you never know. I mean, there's the sheep killings up there, isn't there, as well? You know, there's plenty of sheep killings, which you know, we've come across, which are really, really unusual.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, because you found heads, didn't you? The sheep heads on. Was it you or one of the witnesses, and they were stuck on a wall or in a hole in the wall?
Yeah, we was up there with one of the witnesses, and he'd seen this sheep on the ground. And when he went over, he saw the head, which was rammed into the wall, but it was rammed into the wall where its muzzle was facing out.
Yeah.
And it took him quite a few tugs to pull it out of the wall.
It's yeah, there's some very, very odd things going. I mean, I do believe that there's definitely a big cat up there as well. We know it's been sighted.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and I don't think that's not a cryptid. I think that is just a big cat of some description, whether it's been released or whether it's the progeny of big cats that were released back in the 1970s. I don't know, but the dogman, yeah, that's something in and of.
But the thing is with the dogman, these when people have seen these, they've got red eye shine. Now, there's nothing else in this country that has red eye shine.
No.
And then I've had, when it comes to the big cats, you know, we're talking yellow, orange looking eyes, which are totally different than red eyes.
Yeah, it's very weird, isn't it? And like, there's nothing else that you could mistake for that. Nothing else.
Yeah, because the like I said with the cats, when I say that, you know, like the yellowy orangey eye, it's less red and more yellowy, you know, like a cat. Whereas when they're talking about the dogman sightings, it's red, you know, like traffic light red.
Yeah. And I think as well, when people see these things, and I'll you guys, if you hear the interview that I did with Mick, you'll hear I my voice is going, because the dread that you feel when you see these things, even if you don't know what it is, like Mick was saying before with his experience when they saw those two creatures or whatever they were, it's like a feeling of it's abject terror. And it seems to be completely irrational, because you're looking thinking, why am I feeling like this? And that to me is an indicator. At least that would be my indicator. If I ever felt like that again, I'd think, my God, one of these things is nearby, because that seems to go hand in hand with them appearing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, with that feeling, it's like I said, we felt, for some reason, we felt the feeling first before anything else. Before we saw anything, we felt it.
Yeah,
Which, when you think about that, if you're out there in the field and you're feeling it first, I mean that's your body reacting to something unusual around,
yeah.
and then you see it.
And that's like your prime, because at the end of the day, we are still animals. We do still have some primal abilities, don't we? And people call it your sixth sense, but is it your intuition? Is it your instinct? Whatever, your fight or flight will kick in. It doesn't mean that you're being irrational. It's just your brain has got all these, which I think are stored memories from thousands of years ago. They passed down through your DNA, your genes, whatever. These fears that your ancestors had to live through or deal with. And yeah, that's my opinion anyway. That's what I think.
Well, it's like a dog, isn't it? They sense when there's something around them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you'll see them put the fur up and that. That's probably the same thing as what I got that night. But I was feeling it because it's not a feeling humans get that much. So it was quite intense for myself.
Yeah, because you're not scared easily, are you? You.
No, I must admit, because it was only last year I ended up sleeping in Roddlesworth, having an overnight camp on my own.
Maniac.
I just wanted to get out there and see if anything had happened to me, which I did end up waking up about 3 o'clock in the morning with a strange noise, similar to what you sent me. But I did fall back asleep after a bit.
Right, see, I wouldn't have fallen asleep, but you see there again, and again, people, Roddlesworth, it's a reservoir. It's near where I used to live, because I lived in a little village called Wealton. So you had Wealton, Brinskull, Abbey Village, and these are all little tiny hamlets, and then you've got Roddlesworth. And not far from Roddlesworth, along the road there, it's the Belmont Road. And there've been quite a few sightings of weird things along there, haven't there, Mick?
Yeah. In fact, I'll just move my map over to that area, and we've got the 2-foot predator-like being that was like a fairy. I've got lights of a craft above the canopy going over, like a UFO going over. I've got a phantom black dog, and then a strange metallic swirly looking craft coming out of the woods, going along the road, and then going up towards Great Hill. And then there's one where someone was coming back down that road and they looked into the woods, and they thought there was a pub in the woods because it was all lit up like that. And there's nothing yourself, there's nothing around there apart from right over on the other side of Tockham's.
Yes.
They saw all these lights shining, they saw a bit of mist, and they saw these little beings in the light, shadows of little beings moving around. And one of them said they wanted to stop and have a look, and the fellow who was driving the van said, no, we're not looking, we're going straight on. So there's all sorts of strange things in that area. Now, that's the area where I camped around there, where all these things are happening, because, like I said, I was there out on an investigation on my own, thinking if I'm on my own, something could happen. But it didn't really. But I must admit, I was frightened at some point through the night because my mind was overreacting.
Yeah.
Because I know what's happened around that area. So it was sort of like making me a little bit hyper. It took me a little while to fall asleep. But when I did, I was okay.
Yeah, it's because it's along there that speaking of which, sorry, I'm gonna kind of jump around a little bit. It's along there, if you remember, I told you the tale that I was told by my friend, my army friend.
Yeah.
I've got it on I've got an email of it now for you, so I will send that over.
Brilliant. I was going to ask you about that tonight.
Yes, I've finally managed to get him to. He said he doesn't want his name going out there, but he's finally managed to put it down in writing. The guys on here know that story. Do you remember about the well, what they thought were a cow in the middle of the Belmont Road, and it basically was some big flipping giant dog thing that dragged the bumper off the old Mini that his girlfriend was driving back in the late 80s, I think it was. So yeah, that is where Mick went camping on his own. And that's why I called him a maniac, because there's been that many things that have gone on around that area of Roddlesworth, Tockholes. You're only walking across the road and go up the hill. You're at Great Hill, where my experience happened. Go across the valley, you're at Rivington, which is where the majority of these sightings are happening, and Winter Hill is there, So, and as I said, I will show maps, and Mick's got them on his channel and what have you. So again, anyone who hasn't subbed to Mick, can you go along and do that? I know you've got quite a few of subbed to you now, Mick, so hopefully your numbers are bumped. So could I open it up to the chat? Has anybody got any questions that you'd like to ask Mick? If you have, can you put them in the chat? And I have got one that I noticed earlier, Mick, while we're waiting for questions. Sheila had asked, are there many sightings of dogmen in the UK, and what place are the most sightings? Do you know?
Yeah, I'd say Cannock Chase.
Oh wow, yeah.
There's quite a few around Cannock Chase. We went over there not long ago, actually. We went to what's called the German cemetery area, and there's been quite a few sightings around that area. People seeing these dogmen. I think a postman saw it early one morning. I'm not sure if that was in that particular area or further across. But a postman, he was out on his bike delivering, and he saw a dog-like creature on two legs running across the road in front of him. I'd say there's been, from what I know, there's been 5 well-known sightings. I mean, I've not got them sightings or anything, but if you type in Cannock Chase and dogmen, you'll see all the descriptions there. You can read all about it there.
Yeah, that is a freaky place, Cannock Chase. There's all sorts. The black-eyed children are down there as well, aren't they?
As well, yeah.
Now, Green Eyes is saying, what's the place where you felt the most uncomfortable?
One night, and it weren't really me feeling uncomfortable, but I felt it. But one night, me and my partner, Caroline, was walking up on Winter Hill, and we'd walked from George's Lane up towards the mast. Now, on the right-hand side, there's a field there, what we term the killing field. Now, all them fields, we call them the killing fields because this is where we found all the sheep.
Yeah.
But on the opposite side, there's 2 monuments called the Two Lads. And it's known that quite a long time ago, there was a king around the area whose 2 lads had gone out, and they'd sort of not come back, but they were found in this place where these monuments are, and they've been there ever since.
Yeah.
Now, there's an old story as well of something called Old Ob. Now, Old Ob's a boggart that is the king of the hobgoblins, and it's known that he's got a big seat somewhere up around Anglesark, Winter Hill area. This is an old story going way back. It's part of folklore.
Yeah.
And this night we were walking up, all of a sudden a mist came over the land, and it started coming towards us. Not only did the mist keep coming towards us, but Carol Ann started feeling really anxious and scared, and the first thoughts were, I want to leave, I want to get out of here. God. Now me, I'm more of, I like fog, let us go towards it. But she wouldn't allow me to do that. So we ended up going back. But for myself, around the areas, when we go around the areas, there's quite a few different areas that I get a little bit nervous going in if I'm on my own. But when I'm with people, I don't feel as nervous.
Yeah.
Like, most people don't feel as nervous. So that's why sometimes I like getting out there on my own. Because the more I feel nervous, the more I think, all right, this is the right place. But I must admit, where I went camping, that area makes me unnervy when I'm on my own. Even during the day, it makes me feel unnervy.
Oh gosh! Oh, thank you for that one. Now Luke has asked, "What is the oldest sighting of a dogman that you know of, Mick?"
Oh, I'm thinking about that. The ones Paul Sinclair talks about over in East Yorkshire. He talks about it's like the Flixton werewolf, and I think many people have heard of the Flixton werewolf.
Yes, we talked about it. Yeah.
This is. I don't really know much about it, but because this is Paul's area, I can't sort of concentrate more on my area and what I'm doing and that. So sometimes I don't get time to look into other people's areas and see what they're up to. But I do know it goes way back to this, I think, 1400s.
Right. Okay. Right, now Wickham Moon, she's in Ireland, by the way. She said, have you any Irish recent dogmen sightings, or do you know of any?
Not Irish, no, sorry. I'd like to say it's just the areas I concentrate is mostly around my area, and I'd say Lancashire area, really. But isn't there an Irish like dogman site somewhere, or is that just a Bigfoot, the Irish Bigfoot site? What they have there?
Oh, there's something for you to look into then, Wickham. You see, Wickham does paranormal investigations, but I'll tell you where she's been, and you would probably find it fascinating, Mick. Leap Castle, the most haunted castle in the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
She's done a couple of, and one very, very frightening investigation there. So, and she's told us all about it. She tells a good story, does Wickham. So very well worth listening to. But yeah, if you have a look at that, then Wickham, there appears to be
definitely the Irish Bigfoot, because I do know they do have about 3 documentaries or maybe 4 on Amazon Prime as well. They're quite active, and they do have a Facebook page.
Oh, fantastic! Thanks for that. Oh, something else for us all to have a look into. Right, Julia has said, do you know of any sightings on Crown Point or Pendle, Mick?
Sightings on Pendle? No. Saying that, I when I was talking earlier on about ley lines, one of the ley lines I was following goes through Pendle. There are some dogman sightings, not my reports, but I've heard of dogman sightings around that area on Pendle itself, but mostly UFO sightings. Especially up on the hill itself. Now, within the forest of Bowland, which isn't too far from it as well, there are a couple of dogman sightings. Not my dogman sightings, but there are a few up there, as well as Bigfoot sightings. Someone who's actually a wild camper who was out there, he was that terrified he ended up all night under a cover because there was something stalking him. Almost, can you imagine a dogman type creature, but like walking around on all fours, but like a spider, walking around where he was camping all night? And he just stayed under this cover. And until the sun rose, and then he got out there as quick as he could.
Oh my goodness. That's actually given me the frickies. I've got the goosebumps on that one. Ooh. Right, Lexi has asked, BEK, is that the black-eyed kids, Lexi? I'm not sure. I think so. BEK sightings. Can you tell us any more on your knowledge of this phenomenon, and what do you think of them, black-eyed children?
Well, it's strange, that one, isn't it? Because they're known to go to somebody's house and knock on the door and sort of ask if they can come in. You know, and that's all they'll say. They'll knock on the door and say, you know, like, you know, invite us in, and the children. So people are going to feel sorry for them. But some people, I don't know if anyone's let them in. You know, because we don't hear stories of anyone who's let them into the house and seen what's happened. But we do hear stories of people who have them knocking at the door and they get freaked out and they tell them to go away. So we don't know. I mean, the black-eyed children of Cannock Chase have been to see wandering around.
Yeah.
And apparently seen, you know, like people have photographed them or they've been seen on film. Don't hold me to that because I'm not overly sure about that. But when you talk about black-eyed children, I always think of the ones that, you know, like go knocking on doors. And I think to myself sometimes, are they some sort of vampire? But we don't know because, you know, like I said, we don't know of any stories of people who've let them into their house, only people who've told them to go away.
Yeah. I mean, maybe people have let them in and we just never heard of them again, you know.
Yeah.
No, it's quite frightening. I don't think I would like to see the black-eyed children, but I've got a friend who lives down there. She walks the dogs on Cannock Chase. She's a German lady called Brigitte, and I've known her for quite a few years, but she's as hard as nails because I was saying to her, you walk your dogs in the early hours, or you walk them in the dark on Cannock Chase, and what about the black-eyed children? I just got, don't be so stupid. I'm like, okay. I won't mention it again then. Well, let's have a look. Right, I think that's it. Is there any more questions for Mick? Speak now or forever hold your peace. If there is, I know there's a bit of a delay with some people. Now, obviously, I've just pecked your head, Mick, and asked questions. Is there anything you want to say to us, or that I haven't covered, or that you'd like people to know?
Well, I can give a few of the accounts I've had if you want.
Brilliant. Yes, please.
I'll go to my map and I'll just have a quick look around. Now, let's go to a Bigfoot sighting.
Brilliant.
That was, Wigan. I know some people won't know where Wigan is, which isn't too far from. See, these areas I'm talking about, wherever you are, and you look, because they're in Lancashire, but if you look over towards the east, nearly everyone will see Winter Hill because it's that big, and you see a television mast, and at night it's got lights on, so everyone seems to know where Winter Hill is.
Yeah.
And this Bigfoot sighting is a place called the Wigan Flashes. The Wigan Flashes, the reason they call it that is it's an area. The flashes are bits of water around this like moorland with woods in between, you know, around these bits of waters and that, and it's quite large. And in let me see, this is I've actually got the fella talking about this, but I've had to change his voice because he didn't really want to be shown, but he wanted his voice changing as well. And he works at a place near there. It was a glass factory, and it were in the time, I think it were the 1980s. I'm just reading as I'm looking to, you know, because I've got so many stories I've got to read through them as well sometimes. This was actually September, October 1987, and he was out. He'd they'd been working the glass factory, and they were working nights. And when they got the job done, it'd be one of them where they had a spare hour or so. They used to walk around these flashes, and there was a railway line that went to this glass factory that carried in all the products to make the glass, and then ship it all out. Now, he said there was always an hole in the fence where you could get through to this area of the flashes and walk around it. So this one night, and not only him, but there was other work colleagues who used to do the same. But he said this one particular night, which was a full moon, him and his friend had gone out, and they were walking down this path. And the next minute, they heard someone walking behind them, and they thought they'd hide, thinking it was a work colleague, and wait for them going past and scare them. Now, as this person came towards them, they saw that it looked like he had, one of them leather jackets on, what they used to have in 80s, with tassels hanging down, like a cowboy jacket.
Yeah.
It looked as though he were wearing one of them, because all he could see was his silhouette. The way the moon was shining, and because it was in this wooded area, and the water was just at the side, this path that ran along it was, they could just see what looked like a human figure, but he said it was about, I think he said about 7 to 8 foot tall. Now, his friend who he was with was a bodybuilder, and he says this person was miles bigger than him.
Really?
He said it just stopped, and everything around him went strange. Like the atmosphere around them, it felt as though there was in a bubble, and everything went quiet. They couldn't hear the factory. There was a train track near, which was quite busy. They couldn't hear that. It was just as though they was in a pocket of their own.
Wow.
And he said this person then lifted its arms up a little bit, so they could see these tassels, and then he realized it wasn't tassels, it was hair.
Oh gosh.
And he said all of a sudden, as it lifted its arms up, it let out this scream, or no, sorry, it let out this growl that went into a scream and then went back to a growl. But he said as this were happening, they couldn't look because their eyes started watering, and they started feeling nauseous. And he thought he was going to throw up. And he was just rubbing his eyes because they were just streaming and sore. And after about 5 minutes, they looked up. Everything had gone back to normal, and this thing had totally disappeared. But he said it took him a bit, like to clear his eyes. Now, his friend was a night fisherman, because they'd actually gone round there because there's a canal at the bottom, and they were going down to talk to some night fishermen, and they never got down there. But his friend, who was a night fisherman, never ever went night fishing again, and he never ever spoke about this to anyone, or even to the witness. And they said they just went back and never spoke about it again. And it took him from 1987 to, I think it was 2020, when he spoke to me. He'd never spoke to anyone else about it since. And he said it was a big relief just getting that off his chest and talking to someone about this.
Good grief. Well, I'm just going to say something now, because I hadn't heard of this story, Mick. But the Wigan flashes, I used to, when I was a kid, me and my friends, we used to get the ponies and hack out, or we'd get in somebody with a trailer, and they'd take us off. And we used to go to Wigan flashes. We weren't supposed to ride around it, but we would, because nobody could ever catch you. And I will guarantee every single time we got on the flashes, there was one particular spot, and it was a case of hang on for grim death, because your horses, they'd spook. And I cannot tell you how many times we had 3 horses bolting in one particular spot round on the flashes. And now you're telling me that, because we never knew, there was no reason for it. And my horse at the time was a very placid, very safe horse. You know, for kids, you have to make sure the horses are safe. Even she'd bolt, always in the same spot. So that's interesting now to hear this, that something, the Wigan Flash. Gosh, I wonder.
Well, the reason I got to that story is because of this one, which I'll tell you now, in the same place. So it'd be interesting to see where around it was where that happened with you in your horse.
Yes, yeah.
Because not on the other side of the canal from where this happened, and this was, when did he get in touch with me? This was only a couple of years ago. This is on my channel, and I, like I say, I talked to them both about this, and the reason the one I've just told you about came to me is because he'd heard this fella, what I'm going to talk about now, talk about his experience. And this fella's called Paul, and this was just after, I think it was just after lockdown. He got in touch with me,
yeah,
and he was talking about he'd been going there for about 30, 40 years feeding the birds. He goes around this area because you know, you've been down there, you know what it's like. There's a lot of wildlife and birds around that area. And with the water, it's attracted all the swans and all sorts of different other animals and that. And he's got areas around there where he hangs bird seed in the trees for them. And he was there one morning, and he was just walking along, and a woman who he knows because he's been going there that long, and everyone like talks to each other at morning. So this woman came running over to him with 2 of her dogs, and she didn't know what to do. You know, and he thought she was being accosted by another fella, you know, because she looked that traumatized. And he said that she'd explained that she was walking along and she heard this funny humming sound above her, like an electrical power station. And then she noticed a gorilla-like creature in the bushes that moved backwards and disappeared. And it shocked her, and she just ran. She knew he would be there. So she sort of ran to him because he would at certain points each day. And she ran to him asking whether, you know, he'd escort her off off the flashes to where a car was parked. Now, he himself had a similar experience without seeing anything like any creature and that, but he experienced a noise a couple of weeks after. But how he experienced it was it came over him, and he said it went dark, as though, you know, like when a cloud comes over, when it's covering the sun for a second, and it goes dark a minute, and then it's light again. Well, that happened, but that happened with the noise. But when he looked up, there was nothing there. But he said he could feel all the hairs on his arms and back of his neck standing on end, and he couldn't explain what it was. But he said whatever it was, he could feel it and sense it moving down the canal and just disappearing again towards Winter Hill.
Oh.
You know, Winter Hill, it just seems to attract all these things that are happening around it.
Well, it does, but it's been a hot spot for donkey's years, hasn't it? For UFOs.
It has, yeah. There's been a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, sorry, mate. I was just going to say that it's, you know, people, these were happening, these UFO sightings, long before people like now, where people have got a way to talk about them. You know, they've got channels they can go to. You know, people were seeing lights in the skies and strange objects, you know, decades ago up there. It's not a new thing.
Yeah, they were, because I mean, there's different sightings that go back. Like when I get when it comes to UFOs, some from the 80s. I think the oldest report I got, which I came across through reading a book by a fellow who was writing about the area, and he got an email from someone in Liverpool who was an ex-policeman who'd retired with his wife, and they moved up to an house near the Pike itself, Ribbenton Pike. And it was his grandson who sent an email to this fellow who's written a book. He's called David Lane, and he's written a book about, you might have heard of him. He's written a book about Winter Hill. And within that, he got this email from the lad who said he was there one weekend to stay with his grandparents. And the day after, his granddad, like I said, no-nonsense policeman, decided he got up, told them to get the stuff packed because they were moving back to Liverpool. He didn't want to be there any longer. But what we did find out was he'd looked out of the window and he'd seen something that disturbed him that much that he just wanted to move. And the house was empty for a bit. And he actually passed on without saying what it was he saw.
Yeah, I know which house that is, and that's a freaky place. It's in the middle of nowhere.
It is, yeah.
Just saying here, sorry if I interrupt you very briefly. We've got Sheila said the other week she heard the sky moaning. Sheila's in the over in the northeast. Heard the sky moaning and a heavy sigh, and said it was freaky. And she still can't get it out of her mind what it could have been. And Janet, she can see what Janet's in Manchester, but she can see Winter Hill from her flat, and she saw some strange lights moving fast at odd angles over Winter Hill from where she's living.
Yeah, you do get that, people from afar who can see it, and they'll say they've seen strange lights or strange orbs. Even during day they've seen like ball bearing size type craft moving around.
Yeah,
not one or two, but maybe 5 of them moving around and just zooming from one place to another.
Yeah, it's weird. Like Julie there, it's her son who's had the encounter, but they saw some UFOs around Blackburn. It was along the M65 motorway as they were driving. Right. And her husband, which I hope she won't mind me saying, knows Alan Godfrey.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, and I often wondered, and I thought, do you think that could be an association thing? Because we all know what happened to Alan Godfrey. I mean, I covered it on this channel. Everybody is aware. For those in America, he's a British police officer, and he had an alien encounter back in, that was the 80s, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
So Julia and Paul knows Alan Godfrey. He used to work with him. So, yeah.
Yeah, because he actually runs a Facebook page now, doesn't he? Todmorden UFO group.
I don't know, but I do know.
Or he's an admin on there at least.
Oh, I'll have to have a look, because I did because I believe he's doing a film. His hang on, because I covered the story of Alan Godfrey one night, and Zygmunt Adamski.
Yeah,
the guy who was found dead on top of the coal pile. And we did those too. And then Alan Godfrey's cousin came into the comments, and he said, oh, thank you, you've covered it, because I was on Alan's side, I was saying it from his perspective, how he was ridiculed and chased out of his job.
Yeah.
And his cousin said he's actually in the process of doing a film with Travis Walton.
Oh, right. Interesting.
So I said, please let us know. We'll keep an eye open for it, but please let us know when this film is done, because we'd all be really interested. So there you go, heard it here first. So I don't.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll just go back to the flashes as well, because there is another from there where. A woman was walking a dog's walk, because you get a lot of dog walkers around there, and this woman was walking a dog, and this is from someone who works at the school there, because just at the side of the flashes is a secondary school.
Yeah.
And one of the teachers said that one morning a woman came in screaming with the dogs, saying that she'd seen a gorilla type being running around within the woods and around the little reservoirs. And she was terrified and she didn't want to go anywhere. And the police were involved in it, and they were going to bring out the helicopters until one of the police fellas said it's a waste of time. You know, it's probably someone dressed up in a gorilla suit. But to me, with the things that are happening around there, I don't think there was someone dressed up in a gorilla suit running around there. I think she saw what everyone else has been seeing around there.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say is, because there's not, I think if you were to do a search, there aren't that many places. You couldn't stay as well hidden there as you can, say, at Roddlesworth or up at Liverpool Castle or even up on the moors. And it's when I hear stories like that where I think, is this like a portal? Is this a you know, rip it that they're coming through and then they're going back through again? A bit like at Skinwalker Ranch, where they have these creatures appear and then they vanish into, basically looks like they've stepped into a hole in the air and have just vanished. You know, because they come and go, don't they?
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, the fellow whose eyes were watering, you know, it was there 1 minute, disappeared, but it's that feeling, that sense of being in a bubble as well, and hearing the noises as well with the other two. You know, they've heard the humming and they've heard something around there at the same time, and the woman who saw this this creature sort of like going into the bushes backwards and disappearing. You know, they're going to a different place.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, you've seen, you know, some of us have seen those pictures, the videos of the UFOs, you know, like those cigar-shaped things that are going along and then they just literally vanish in thin air, as though they've gone through something that we can't see.
Yeah, that does happen a lot. You know, like they're there 1 minute and then disappear. But where are they disappearing to? You know, because you don't see them move, they just disappear.
Well, it's like those. Oh God, and I'm going to make a mess of it now. There was that story about those two children back in, was it the 1600s? I have done the story on my channel a year or so ago.
The green children, yeah.
Where did they? You know, they didn't speak the English language. They were a colour of green, and that was obviously from what they'd eaten. They were terrified. They had no clue where they were. Where the hell had they come from?
They sort of came from nowhere, didn't they, and just turned up, and that is so unusual. And the young girl passed on, didn't she? And he lived a little bit longer. But they never disappeared after. But it's strange how they came from nowhere with this strange language and looking green. Yeah. You know, what's the explanation behind that?
No, I mean, and that was what was it like something like the 1600s that happened, wasn't it?
It was.
You know, before there was never any talk of portals and different planes of existence. Green Eyes is just saying there she saw that's what she saw, was a cigar-shaped craft in the outback.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, you know, Australia is a big, massive place, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I can imagine a lot going on there, especially with the Yowie. You know, there's a big enough space for it to hide out there.
Absolutely. I mean, there's all sorts of things. There's even dogmen being seen in Australia. And when that's happened, you see, that's sometimes why I think, you know, I'll go on to another theory as to what they are, because if you think about, you know, because obviously Australia, New Zealand, they've got their own creatures, haven't they? And which are different to anything anywhere else on the planet. But yeah, if you think about who's gone and basically populated Australia and New Zealand, ignoring the native people, the majority of the people that rocked up there were European, weren't they?
Yeah.
And I sometimes wonder, is this something that came with the European people? Because the stories going back into Scandinavia from thousands of years ago of these wolf-like creatures that are like men. There's the stories from the northern, Orkney and Shetland of the Wolver, which is the Scottish version of, the Dogman. It's the same with America. These stories seem to appear with the majority of the European settlers who went over there. And I'm thinking, is it something that's come with the Europeans, maybe?
Or was it something that was already there and the Europeans have written about it?
Yeah.
These things could have been everywhere. And they're just hidden at the moment. And who can blame them to keep away from us?
I know. I mean, the Bigfoot thing, yeah, I can understand them trying to keep away, but the dogmen, I'm not feeling it with them. I'm too scared of them because you don't really hear that many benevolent stories of them, do you? They usually are quite intimidating and menacing and scary.
Saying that, I mean, where do we ever hear that they've actually killed someone? But they are frightening in a way. There's a story I was told by a fellow called Steve Mera, and he says he heard a story, or he tells this story of three fellas who were running away from a dogman that they'd encountered, and one of the fellas who was at the back, they were all running along a railway track. Two of them in front, the one behind, he falls over. And they're all terrified. They're really terrified. They're running away from this thing. The one at the back falls down. And the only thing he can think of doing is curling up into a ball. Now, this dogman comes near to him and he's growling, but it doesn't do anything else. Because the fella sort of like gives in and thinks, oh, this is it. This is the end. And he doesn't do anything else. Oh. But the dogman doesn't do anything else. And it makes you wonder whether they're feeding off the fear of people. And this is what they want. Now, this is the same thing as what the jinn do. And these entities that have been going for thousands of years. Is it a fear-based thing that they're actually feeding off? And they're showing themselves as dogman these days because it's, a lot of people talk about dogman.
I think you're right with that because it's like ghosts, isn't it? Or what are they called? Poltergeists and things like that. And they say don't show your fear because they'll manifest. They'll grow and grow and grow because they're feeding off this negative energy that you get.
They always seem to go for young girls who going through puberty. They tend to go for that. And you can imagine the hormones, how they're up and here and everywhere. Are they feeding on that? Because there is a bit of fear for these young girls at that age. They don't know what they're going through. It's these sort of things that they seem to be feeding on, all these things. And when you look at that, you see that all the other things as well, what we talk about, Bigfoot and things like that, there seems to be a fear factor there. Is it? Sometimes I think, is it the same thing that is showing itself as many other things, feeding off the fear of people, but it is the same thing behind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, do you know what? It's a bit like, and I know you used this word before, but it's a bit like anyone who's seen Harry Potter, their version of the boggart. So the boggart that they have in the Harry Potter film, it turns into your fear. So whatever you're frightened of, that's what it manifests
as. You see,
yeah.
And perhaps that's why that night that happened to us over in Bempton. Lee saw some what is fears sort of thing.
Yeah,
looking at him, where we all saw different things. Like the two mediums who were with us, they saw big cats, Now,
Right.
me, like I said, I didn't see anything but shadows moving around.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were all seeing something a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something there, Mick. I do. That does make a lot of sense. And, you know, it's yeah, they're going to pick up on these terrible fears. And the other thing I think as well is that once a lot of people who had these experiences that I've been listening to online, I can't speak for everybody, but it is true with me, is that usually you'll find that somebody who has an experience of, say, they think they've seen a UFO or a craft or something, they have an experience that they can't explain. And I had something similar. To this day, I don't know what it was. It didn't look like a craft. It looked like a big, you know, the triangular stealth planes. That's what I thought it
Yeah.
was. But it wasn't. It wasn't one of those. And we did make inquiries, and it wasn't one of those. And I saw that at Lowton.
You saw that word, sorry?
Lowton.
Right, yeah.
You know, up the East Lancs going towards Manchester, right near the pub called the Greyhound Pub. It were across on the opposite side there as you're going to go towards Lowton.
Right.
And I was in the car. It was probably about midnight-ish, just after, because the pubs had just kicked out. So I saw that, and then obviously I've had the experience that you're aware of, and one other. And I've kind of picked up that people who tend to see these, so they might see a UFO, then they'll have all of a sudden they'll suddenly get loads of different experiences. And some people seem to think, oh yeah, they're just after the attention, but I don't think that's what it is. I think seeing one thing opens you up to a lot of other things. You know, are they all connected? You know, are UFOs connected to Bigfoot and Dogmen, or vice versa, and ghosts? And is this, whatever you see, if it's a UFO or a craft or an alien, is that triggering something in your brain that's been shut down? You know, this ability to see things or sense things that Joe Blogs in the Street doesn't.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's sort of opening you up to see all these other things. Yeah, and yeah, it does make you wonder sometimes whether it is all the same thing.
Yeah.
That is showing itself in different ways to people.
Yeah, very, very, very strange. But I wouldn't want an experience again. I know some people, you know, they go out and they've seen something once, they go out hunting for it, you know, especially with Bigfoot encounters and things like that. But you do get people with dogmen or beasts or something. But it's not something I would ever, ever want to experience again. But that's just me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when we've been up on a winter island, we've been looking on the field, what we term the kill field.
Yeah.
We were up there one night, and Lee Roscoe, one of our team, like he's one for always looking behind him when we're walking anywhere. He'll turn around and look behind him. No matter what, he's, you know, we walk forward, he's constantly looking behind because he thinks if all eyes are looking in different directions, we will see something. And one evening we were up there, and I think this was about 9 o'clock at night, and it was pitch dark again because we do like going up there in dark. not only because there's no one around there, you know, no one else seems to go up there. You get the odd night walker,
Yeah.
who you just say hello to, and that's about it. But we were walking near the quarry there, and we were walking across the field going up the hill, and all of a sudden Lee shouts, there's something over there, can you see it? Put your torches on it. So as I swung my torch round, I saw something moving along this top of this quarry, that was like very dark in colour, and I could see coarse hair. You know, I can make out the hair on it.
God.
And it moved quickly. You know, it just moved out of my sight. And as I shone the torch round, I couldn't see it. But we all ran towards it, which, I mean, most people would run away from something like this. But because of what we're doing, we got so used to it, is get there and see what this thing could be. when he were looking through a pair of infrared binoculars. So when you look through through a pair of them, you seem like a negative of a photo. So what is black is white, and other way around. So he was seeing a pair of really bright white eyes looking at him. Now, Denise, who is our other team member, she actually saw white eyes looking up. And at first she thought it was a deer, and then she realized that these eyes are too big for it. Not a deer, sorry, a sheep.
Right.
She then realized they were too big for a sheep and too wide. They were too far apart. As we got close to the quarry and closer, Lee's first thought that popped into his head was, I don't think we're going to see anything now. It's gone. Whatever this was, it's gone. So we got to the top of the quarry, which is about a 25-foot drop. Looked down, nothing. And all at the bottom of this quarry is shale. So if there was something running around down there, we'd hear it.
Yeah.
Because it was such a still, quiet night, we could hear the motorway from that distance up where we were. We have the M61 that runs like, it's a good 20, 25 miles away from where we were, but we could hear it. So if we could hear that, we could hear shale moving. Absolutely. And we looked down and there was nothing. We looked all the way around and we couldn't find whatever this was. But when he said it was looking, and when Denise said she saw it like looking without the binoculars, she saw the white eyes. It was almost as though it was lying down, but bobbing up or hanging onto the quarry and bobbing up and down over the grass to see what we were doing.
Oh, that's freaky.
So that's weird. We've had things like that happening while we've been out.
God. Now, YouTube ladies just asked, do you think the Mothman exists? You know the story of the Mothman from America?
The John Keel story, yeah. It's not only there. We've got reports of the Mothman. They sort of seem to be all over America, don't they? And it just lately they've been talking about it being in Chicago.
Oh, I don't know.
Sightings around there at the moment.
Wow.
We don't know if anything's happened around there yet. Like the bridge collapse in where it was seen originally.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because normally something happens, doesn't it? When it's seen there's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something I've really looked. I know little bits about it, but I've not really looked into it. Because wasn't it first seen? Was it teenagers or something in a car? Or am I thinking of something else that first saw this one with the Mothman?
I can't. I've read the book and I've looked into it, and I can't remember who saw it first. But there were some teenagers who'd seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a few of the town people that had seen it. All at different times.
Yeah, there's that, because there's also the Julie's saying it's a sign of foreboding. Yeah, it's like a harbinger of doom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's that other story as well that we found quite interesting on here. And I've got a brain fart and I can't remember the name. I think it's Lancaster over in America, where there was that multiple abduction of children by aliens. Were you aware of that one?
No, I'm not aware of that one, no.
In the 1960s, and all these kids, it was the weirdest thing. They had the adults were left. There were kids going missing out of the back of cars. The car at night, the car died, and then there'd be like mum, dad, sister in the car, and the other daughter had vanished and was taken, and they buggered off home without her, not realizing this child wasn't with them anymore. It was like there was a kid, it vanished running across a field, all sorts. And then months later, some of these kids who never met, came across each other purely by chance, and they recognized each other from being on this craft. It's the weirdest story ever. And so these kids now are all in, like, I think they're in the 60s and 60s going into the 70s now, and they've never changed that story. they've been ostracized, they've been ridiculed, and they've never ever deviated from this story, that what happened to them that night. Really interesting story, Mick.
Well, that's the thing, is when somebody comes with their account and they stick to what they're saying, especially after so many years.
Yeah.
Now, how can you not believe something like that? Especially when you talk to them and you see the reactions when they're talking about it. It never changes as well. They always have that same look in the face. You know, they always have that same, they're reliving it in their head.
Yeah, Janet's just saying there she's seen a TV clip of that. They all told the same story. I know it's really unnerving, that. I mean, I like the Travis Walton story. If any of you haven't seen the film, it's called Fire in the Sky. And that's a really good film, and it's a true story. But yeah, this one about, I think it was it Lancaster, something like Lancaster, Massachusetts or something, Janet. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting case, and these people have had terrible lives, Mick, because of what they've seen and what they came out.
Yeah.
You know, what's YouTube lady saying? I know there was a paranormal documentary, something like Mothman. A couple heard something on the roof in daylight and saw these big footprints in snow, and the police couldn't understand it. Well, it's like, I think there was a tale over here from, oh God, I think it was the 1700s, and a snowy morning, and people got up, and all around this village and over every single roof there were hoof prints, but only two, and they were saying they called them the devil's footprints. Don't know if any of you have heard that story. It was like the devil had been out dancing overnight, and it had been up on everybody's roofs, it had been through every garden, it was up and down the street, and there were only these two. So it was like something with hooves on two legs had been all around the village. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I've heard that story before. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and there are too many things that we can't explain, you know, and especially when there are multiple sightings. Oh, Linda's just asking there, are there any dogman stories in Scotland that you might have heard of? Although Mick does tend to just stick to the north of England, Linda, but you might have heard some.
I have heard of some dogman sightings in Scotland. I do know of some Bigfoot sightings over there. What's the woods called? The forest called up there. Kilda Forest, is it?
Oh, right, okay.
There's been, in fact, I'm not sure if it's in Chris Turner's film Elusive, and there's a woman in there who talks about a Bigfoot sighting in Scotland. And I think there's somebody talking about Kilda Forest.
Right.
In fact, if anyone looks on YouTube and types in Elusive and Chris Turner or Chris Turner Films, they'll come across it. And it is an excellent documentary. And it's all about the British Bigfoot, and it's from Scotland all the way down to the south.
Yeah, but I can second that. I've not watched it all. I got kind of part way through, and then I ended up getting distracted doing something else. But yeah, so and I am going to put a link as well as Mick's link again and again and again that I keep doing every so often. I will also put a link in for Chris Turner's channel as well. Sheila's asking, do you know of any dogmen around Yorkshire? Because that's where she's based.
Well, I'll tell you what she needs to look into is Paul Sinclair and his stuff around there, and he's just he's at the point where it's nearly finished making a film, a documentary called Wolflands. So if anyone puts Wolflands into Google and Paul Sinclair, you'll see all the dogman sightings around that area and what he's looking into. And that's all around like North Yorkshire area, Benton, all around that area. And he talks about the Flitstone werewolf as well.
I'll just put in this in the chat for people so that they can, so they know who we're talking about. There you go. Is a good channel. I'm sub to Paul. So yeah, it's definitely worth going having a watch of.
In fact, interview I've done with him, which will be coming out next month, we do discuss Wolflands as well, as well as other things. He's I tend to. I've got this new little mini series I'm doing where I'm interviewing other researchers about them and their work. So the one I've just put out this last week was with a fellow called Mark Holley, who talks about a UFO crash, which is termed the Roswell, the Europe's Roswell, and he's talking all about that. That came out on the 3rd, I think. So that's my channel. It's Armchair Interviews, it's called, and Paul is going to be my next one.
Oh, fantastic! Because I wouldn't tell anybody who you were before coming on, because I thought I don't want them to ruin it by going on your channel and watching everything, and you have nothing interesting to tell them because they're going already. So, yeah, I watched that when you put it up the other day. They are really good, but I like all the stuff on your channel anyway. I do like it, and I just want to encourage everybody again, give Mick a follow if you haven't, and please go and watch all the stuff on his channel. It's really good, and I'll like I said, I'll do a community post with a lot of the links to the places that Mick's been discussing tonight. I'll show you how to find them, where they are. I'll put some pictures up and what have you. Just so that you all, especially the people who aren't in the UK, who don't know these places, because I know we do have a lot of subs in America. So yeah, you can get a taste of what we go through in the UK for a change, instead of listening to you lot having the exclusives on Dogmen. So what's Sheila put? I'm okay with UFO and aliens, but Dogmen she'll freak out. She doesn't want any Dogmen being over in Yorkshire. Tough.
Yeah, that's a bit tough, that, because there's more over there than there is over here.
Sheila's just Julie's just saying she's thinking she shouldn't have tuned in tonight because she's scared she won't go out now at night anymore. Oh no, this has been brilliant. Oh well, Mick, thank you so much for coming on, and they really enjoyed it, as have I. And I hope
enjoyed it myself.
Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed, but giving us a tell, and maybe at some point, if you'd be willing to come back on when you've got some stories that you'd like to tell us all, because we don't really get guests on here that often, with me being a little channel, but everybody's really thrilled, and they're so interested in these stories about the paranormal and UFOs and Dogmen. And it's just been really, really nice having you up here. And like Green Eyes said, thank you, Mick. Hope you come back.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank you so much. So, yeah, guys. So, yeah, if you can all thank Mick for coming on. If we wrap it up, so, yeah, we've done quite a long time. It's 2.5 hours. That's pretty good going for me without.
It's gone quick, hasn't it?
It has. Thank you, and I know you work as well, so don't want to keep you up all night. Yeah. Big thank you from everybody and the channel for Mick's time. We've really appreciated it, and yeah, I'll be sending everybody over as soon as I've logged off here. All the links will go up on my community page, and we'll send a few more subs over. So yeah, everybody's thanking you in chat, Mick, and yeah, that's been brilliant. And hopefully, I will speak to you soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. That's been great. You take care. Thanks a lot, Mick.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Right, guys, there we go. What a fantastic guest we've had on. So thank you all for coming in. It's been really, really good. And yeah, we'll hopefully get Mick up again sometime. Oh, you lot are brilliant. So thank you. Keep an eye open for my community posts, and it will have all the links on for Mick's channel and everything. I was making notes throughout of places that he's mentioned, like Wigan Flashes and Winter Hill and Rivington. So for people who aren't in the UK, you can get a good idea, and people who are in the UK but don't know the Northwest, and you can get a good idea of the place we've talked about. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Sheila. Yeah, go off and watch Mick's channel. Go and blast it all now. So yeah, thank you all. It's been really good, and I am going to log off now. I'm going to go and watch Mick's channel as well and update myself on a lot of his stuff. So I hope you've all enjoyed that. Everybody give him a sub. We will definitely have him back as a guest at some point in the hopefully not too distant future. So night, everybody. Take care. And as always, I'll see you all on the bright side.